Former FBI director and current fired guy James Comey did an interview with George Stephanopoulos last night, and it only made Comey look worse. James Comey never should have done that ABC News interview. In fact, James Comey never should have written this ridiculous book, A Higher Loyalty. Because at the end of the day, all this book is a few hundred pages of a complaining letter to the boss who fired you. He's a 6'8" whiny crybaby. It makes him look absolutely terrible. But even worse for Comey, it makes him look like a liar. It makes him look like the liar he is. Now, Town Hall did a good piece last week, and the piece is entitled, Comey's Hubris Will Be His Demise. It's written by Kevin McCullough, and it starts by saying James Comey is a really stupid individual. It goes through the legal jeopardy he's in. It lists point by point 7 reasons why James Comey isn't that smart of a guy. Criminal mishandling of information, denying leaking the information, changing the Hillary Clinton memo, creating PR stunts out of what should have been grave professional situation, profiting off of the testimony. Look, it says, number 6, his department was an utter disaster. That's an understatement. His number 2, Andrew McCabe, was a complete and utter mess. McCabe, the OIG report on McCabe that I'm going to be talking about on the longer show later today, my God, Andrew McCabe is going to need to be criminally charged. After reading the OIG report, 30-some-odd pages, I read them all, there is no other option but a criminal referral to the Department of Justice for Andrew McCabe. He did worse than General Flynn did. General Flynn had to take a plea on process crimes of lying to federal investigators. Andrew McCabe did worse. And there's some damning information in the OIG report for former Attorney General Loretta Lynch as well. Number 7 in this town hall piece about Comey, his own people disagreed with his ethics and practices. And it says, in the aftermath of his bizarre statement to the press regarding the Hillary Clinton email investigation, more than 100 field agents of the FBI and roughly half a dozen DOJ attorneys made public through a source their total disbelief and disagreement with his assessment. Now, that was the official source, if you will. They made this public through a source that disagreed. I spoke to agents on background. I spoke to agents I know. I spoke to former agents, former DOJ people, to a person. They were shaking their heads. They were bewildered. Like, we do not, was their sentiment, we as agents, as law enforcement people. And I can tell you, as a former law enforcement guy myself, law enforcement doesn't decide whether or not to bring things to a grand jury. That was one flaw in Stephanopoulos' line of questioning last night when he says, do you think you should have brought, I'm paraphrasing Stephanopoulos, but do you think you should have brought Hillary Clinton before a grand jury? That wasn't Comey's job, so his answer was completely irrelevant. What's worse, Comey admitted on international television, really, when you consider satellite, he admitted that he did not tell the commander-in-chief, the chief law enforcement officer in the United States, his boss, the president of the United States, that the dossier was funded by the Clinton campaign. Now, morons out there on social media who know nothing about the criminal justice system are saying, well, Trump didn't need to know because we thought Trump was a Russian asset. No. Material information is material information. And the source of evidence, well, that's the basis of the credibility for the evidence. The source is the credibility. If I've got a good confidential informant who's delivered information consistently and hasn't gotten into trouble in 2 years, and we cut them a deal 2 years ago and they've honored it and their information has led to ironclad, consistent convictions, well, that's a good source of evidence. If I've got a junkie CI who constantly gives me bad information, and when I go to vet the information, it always turns out to be false, and they're just trying to get another pass because they're constantly committing crimes, well, that's bad evidence. So the source of the information is critical. It's not, as Comey tried to make it seem, an immaterial detail. It's a glaringly, incredibly important detail. But perhaps most egregious of all, and that might be an overstatement because So many things about Comey's conduct were egregious. It was just incredibly unprofessional. One of, I should say, the most egregious things is when he admits that he released the memo. This doesn't even make any sense. He released the second memo on Hillary Clinton, saying that they were reopening the investigation because he was so sure she was going to win the presidency that he didn't want her to be considered an illegitimate president if the FBI had been perceived to have covered up an investigation into her and not gone forward with it. That's about the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. But even worse, in that one statement, he admitted that the FBI is a politicized organization, that it is not an unbiased, blind to politics, criminal justice organization. It's pretty terrible stuff. And Comey should be ashamed of himself because he lied to investigators. He lied under oath. His number two lied under oath. Peter Strzok and Lisa Page texting each other on taxpayer time. No one respected him. There was no command at the top of the FBI. None. And you know, when you watch the guy, and you see his kind of mopey style, and he doesn't have a command presence, and he's not particularly inspiring, or he's just not a leader, you can understand how the people under him ran roughshod over him. I had tough, good bosses in the NYPD, and I had very wishy-washy bosses. And I can tell you, law enforcement people, left to their own devices, will walk all over a wishy-washy boss. And that's what Comey was. He's just not a tough guy. He's not a tough guy. And after watching him in that silly interview, I mean, he made himself look absolutely horrible. After watching that, it's no wonder the FBI was in such a terrible place when he left. This is all very, very important content, and it's going to get more serious. We're in very troubled times, and I want to bring it to you every day. Help me do that by subscribing to our premium service at www.therebel.media/shows. Download the Rebel app. Go to your app store, download our great Rebel app. Awesome way to get all of our content. Go to our petition, firescottisrael.com. We want to see the Broward County Sheriff removed. As always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.